Okay, so you said we want to find the vertex. So to find the vertex, how do we find the vertex? Divided by 2a. So what am I plugging in here? Negative 4 divided by 2 times negative 2, because here a is equal to negative 2, b is equal to 4, correct? Okay, so now we get negative 4 divided by negative 4, which is 1. Now what I want you to notice here, so this is the axis of symmetry. X equals 1 is the axis of symmetry. Notice how that axis of symmetry is halfway in between the two x-intercepts. That's because there's symmetry, right? So if the y-intercept is 1 point away, who can tell me what the other point on the other side of the axis of symmetry is that's symmetrical to the y-intercept? It would actually be 2, 6, right? Because it's 1 away on the other side. And then somewhere on this line is the vertex. This right here is first x equals 1 is the axis of symmetry. Now if I plug in x equals 1, what am I going to find? Negative 2 times 1 squared plus 4 times 1 plus 6 is negative 2 plus 4 plus 6, and you're right, that's 8. So 1/8 is here, and that is our vertex. Vertex is 1, 8, and now we can just connect those points, drawing our curve with arrows on the end, and there we go. That's our graph. So that's, another way of doing this is create a table of values. Now, if you have a graphing calculator, you might check it on the graphing calculator. And remember I said you could also use Desmos. This is when you're at home just to make sure that it works. Okay, so I'm going to slide this over a little bit and just show you how you can plug in the equation on the graph. Yes? 1 squared is 1 times 2. So negative 2, when I use my graphing calculator, I go y equals negative 2, and then I plug in x squared plus 4x plus 6. I press graph, and I should see this parabola come up. So I can look at those, look at the shape to make sure it's the same, and I can go second table. And here I'll see a table of values. There's 0, 6, there's 1, 8, the vertex, there's 2, 6, that symmetrical point, and then if we look for where y is equal to 0, that's negative 1, and where y equals 0 is 3. I know that's not showing up great on the screen, but if you have a graphing calculator, play around with it, okay? Okay, I'll have to look at yours in later, okay? So then sketch the graph. Y equals 1/2 x squared plus 4. So we're essentially going to always be going through the same procedure over and over and over again. In fact, it doesn't matter what kind of graph it is. Anytime you want to graph something, you can always look for the x-intercepts and the y-intercept, and the vertex. So the easiest one to find is the y-intercept. So the y-intercept, what is it? 0. You plug in 0 for x, you get 0 for y, right? You could plug that in. You see that the c is a plus 0 there. There is an implied plus 0 right next to the x, the 4x. So that means if your y-intercept is at the origin, does that also mean that you have an x-intercept at the origin? Because they're both, right? That's an x-intercept and a y-intercept. How do we do the x-intercept? How do we find the x-intercept? We're going to y equals 0 and solve for x. So we go 0 equals 1/2 x squared plus 4x. Okay? What do you want to do now? So the same thing applies. Remember when we were clearing fractions? You could also clear fractions here, couldn't you? What would you need to multiply? Instead of dividing everything by -2 like we did in the last example, what would you want to multiply both sides by in order to clear the fraction? You would want to multiply it by 2, which is the reciprocal of 1/2. So if you multiply both sides, everything by 2, right? I can do whatever I want so long as I do the same thing to both sides. What's 2 times 0? Well, that's convenient because now we still have it set equal to 0, correct? What's 2 times 1/2? It's going to be 1x squared. Good, 1x squared. What's 2 times 4x? 8x. We're multiplying, right? We're multiplying here so that we could clear the fraction, because if we do 1/2 times 2, that fraction's gone. Does that make it a little bit easier to factor? What would you do to factor now? So we're looking first always for the GCF. The GCF of these is x. X comes out, and what's left? X plus 8, you see that? Then we set each to 0. X equals 0. X plus 8 equals 0. So what do we get here? Right, I'm just solving for x. So we have our x-intercepts are 0, 0, which is the same thing, right? And our other x-intercept is -8, 0. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 on the y-axis, x-axis. 1, 2, 3, -4. 1, 2, 3, -4. I don't know why I did -4. What? Yes?
You put the exponent to, I don't understand.
It's not an exponent. Sorry, this is multiply by 2.
Why?
So that we could clear the fraction, just so we didn't have to factor with the fraction. Yeah, if you want to factor with the fraction, that's okay, but it just makes it a little easier, right? If I clear fractions. So that was you're right. That's not an exponent of 2, that's a multiply by 2. Good clarifying question. Okay, so our x-intercept is 0, 0. We already graphed that. And -5, -6, -7, -8. Wait, -5, -6, -8. Okay, and then over here, our other x-intercept is there. Is this one going to open upward or downward? Upward, because there's a positive coefficient. So it's going to open upward. Before we find the vertex, does anybody have any guesses as to what the vertex, what the axis of symmetry is going to be? Can you tell based on the fact that I have 2 intercepts? What is it going to be? Why do you say -4? Yes, it's always this axis of symmetry has to be equidistant. So Michael's right. It's absolutely x equals -4. Well, let's prove it, okay? So let's do the vertex. X equals -b over 2a. -b is -4 over 2a. 2 times 1/2. How does that simplify? It's 2 times 1/2. 1. So -4 over 1 is -4. Now, somewhere on this is the vertex, right? This is just the axis of symmetry. And if we want to know where the vertex is on this line, this vertical axis of symmetry, which we decided is halfway in between, how are we going to find the y-coordinate? What do we do to find the y-coordinate? Plug it in, right? We take our x. Anytime we have an x-coordinate, this is x. We're going to plug it in, so we get y equals 1/2 times -4 squared plus 4 times -4. Now, of course, you can use your calculator there, but let's just go ahead and do it. I think these numbers aren't too bad. So -4 squared happens first. We do exponents first. So we get 1/2 times 16 minus 16. Do you see where I'm getting minus 16 from? What's half of 16? 8 minus 16 is -8. Wait a second. Did I do something wrong? Oh, it's opening upward. I was thinking it was opening downward. I was like, wait, shouldn't it be up here? No, it actually should be down here. So -5, -6, -7, -8. This was our y coordinate. So put it together. What's the ordered pair that is the vertex? Yeah, vertex is x equals -4, y equals -8, and so -4, -8 would be here. Draw our smooth lines, okay? And again, you can use a graphing calculator, or you could use Desmos to check your graphs, especially when you're doing this at home for practice. Really good idea to practice using Desmos, because in the next class, actually in the next several classes you'll be using Desmos for all your graphing, okay? So any questions on that?